welcome to Color Findars. This is the episode 2. Last week we have a Cantonese speaking episode which is talking about movies, middle class privileges in movie, case studies, and a new blonde came as case study. Now this week we're speaking in English. Sorry for my broken English. I'm the host Panay. My co-host for today is Li Guang. And our guest of honor today is Fabrizio Gilardino.
Yeah, good, very good.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, now, firstly, we have to let Fabri to introduce himself to you guys.
All right. Well, what a task. What should I say? I'm here because a few days ago I curated a program of experimental movies from Canada and short animation movies from Italy at Findars. And that's part of one of the many things I'm doing. But originally, I mean, the main thing I've been doing for the past 20-25 years is graphic design.
Okay,
that's my background. But I've always worked as graphic designer, especially in Montreal, for the cultural media. So mostly music, designing record sleeves and posters for concerts and such things. But I've been doing some work as well for the Contemporary Art Museum and art galleries, theater and dance companies. And then since my I've always been interested in music. At a certain point, I played in a few bands as well.
A few,
yeah.
Okay.
And what else? For a few years, I've been involved in the digital typography scene as well. Especially at the very beginning, early 90s when it was quite new.
Yep. Especially the age where Reagan, the magazine.
Yes, exactly, and I've always been interested in cinema as well, movies, which has become over the years, especially since a few years now, one of the my main interests. But I don't know. I have a very formal, traditional background. I studied graphic design in Milan, in Italy.
Okay. Or you were born in Milan?
No, I was born in a small town called Biella, which is up on the Alps, 1 hour north of Turin.
Okay.
So northwestern
Have
Italy.
you been there? No.
Nobody has been there. But I studied in Milan at university in Milan, and since I'm an old man, at that time, no computers were still in the picture. So I learned the trade, the traditional way.
Very manually.
Yes,
cut
exactly.
And paste.
Yeah, exactly. Which is something that over the years, when I started to use a computer, became very helpful in a certain way, because I've always tried to integrate manual elements into what I was
digital format.
Doing afterwards on the computer, and that's something that gave me, I guess, the opportunity to work in a very different way from younger people who were trained right away on the computer. and didn't often think that they could do stuff with their own hands without using right away the computer. And then since at that time it was quite costly to open up a graphic design studio, because you needed a lot of space, you needed a lot of materials. I started to, after I graduated, I started to work in a graphic design studio in Milan for a few years, and that was a very interesting experience, because as you might know, everybody knows, I think it's very different, when you work, when it's actual work for actual clients in an actual setting, is very different from what you do at school. And you end up learning as much as you have learned in school while you are actually working.
Same. I used to be a graphic designer too.
Okay.
What we do in the company we work is different from the school.
So I worked for, I think, 3 years in Milan, but already at that time, I was already interested in cinema, and I was working at the same time, because I worked in this graphic design studio full time for 1 year, and for 2 years it was part time, because it was a little bit too much. I've never been very good at working in a studio environment, with every day 9 to 5, and quite fast I got bored, and so for the last 2 years of the 3 years I worked at that studio, I really needed to do something else beside. And at that time, I kind of discovered cinema in a general
in Milan?
sense in Milan. And I was working part time for a very small. In Italian, they were called cinema d'essai, which means like a kind of art studio movie theaters, very small. Maybe there were 100 places, and the programming was mostly retrospectives dedicated to a specific director or a specific movement or group of directors or stuff like that.
Mostly independent or
both. I would say, one, it was as much as programming I don't know, movies from the 30s or even before that, or classic movies, as much as showing stuff from new emerging Italian directors and independent movies. I remember once we did a quite a big event dedicated to the independent American movies from the early 80s. So first movies by Jim Jarmusch, John Waters, and Scott and Beth B, and the kind of people, and
very artsy people.
Well, it was a very nice place. I still, when I still think about, the years I worked there, I at that time it was like, it was a job, but it was a little bit more than a job. But now I tend to see it as a kind of a school in a certain way, because I had the chance to really watch so many movies and get to know cinema as an art form much better,
Very good opportunity.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in the present day cultural situation, you know, those places, at least in Italy, don't exist anymore. You know, the place closed up in the early 90s, I think, and nowadays it would be absolutely impossible to even think about opening such a place. It would be it would be a commercial disaster. You know, it would be a catastrophe.
You cannot make any money.
People wouldn't come, I think. And so,
what else then? What do you move on? You move
that went on for a few years. What else? I was already involved in music at that time.
How old are you that time? How old are you?
How old I am now?
No, during that Milan period.
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in my 20s. And I've always been a huge music fan, and so with a couple of friends, we formed a small non-for-profit association, or I don't know how to call it, but and we started to organize concerts, especially in Bologna and in Milan as well. And the idea was to bring to Italy people who had never really played there, or, you know, at that time I remember we were really interested in the, you know, John Zorn and
experimental stuff.
Yeah, right. David Moss and Elliot Sharp and some other people from New York, and
his type of music.
Yeah. And so that was quite big as well. For a couple of years, we managed to organize quite a few concerts every year in Bologna. But all that was kind of connected, you know, because then I would design the posters for the concerts, and it was everything I've done in a certain way has
DIY.
always been connected in some sort of way, you know. So I don't really see it as different boxes, you know, and or separate activities. Everything was kind of connected. Even later on, when I moved to Montreal, there's a very lively art scene in Montreal, and everything is kind of connected. You know, there's dancers who play in bands. There's musicians who are also visual artists. So it's everything is interconnected in a certain way.
You mean in Montreal?
Yeah.
Does it mean that Montreal is more vibrant than in Italy?
Nowadays, I think so. I think so.
Even in the old days?
Well, in the old days, I don't know, but one thing that has always been very difficult in Italy is to get things done. I don't know why, but, you know, even when we were organizing gigs in Bologna, it was always a problem to find a venue. It was always a problem to promote the event. People were not really, mainstream media were not really interested in.
Yeah, not supporting.
Yeah, no, not at all. And Italy has a chronic problem when it comes to culture, that, you know, public money, for example, is almost exclusively devoted to the restoration of cultural heritage. You know, so when you can't compete with that, you know, because you're asking money, you're asking to divert money that is going to, I don't know, preserve Rome's Colosseum, and, you know, it's you can't compete with them. So
that is the main source of their income.
Yeah, and so in Montreal, things are much, in that respect, much easier. also partly because there are in place government agencies that can take care of grants and stuff like that. So it's much more organized in a certain way compared to Italy. Yeah.
So basically what you do in Montreal is more into the cinema stuff?
Now, I don't know, maybe a little bit more. Nowadays I'm not working as much as graphic designer, also because since I've been doing that for the cultural milieu, as in many other places around the world, money for culture is drying up almost everywhere. So there's
same
less money every year, and on one hand, on the other hand, there's the big question about since I'm working with music in it's like nobody does CDs anymore, or nobody promotes concerts printing posters anymore.
Yeah.
So it's changing, and I'm trying to adapt, I think, to this new situation, and so almost in a natural way, I'm doing more. I've become more involved in, for example, these curatorial activities, movies and stuff, because things are still changing, and I don't know about you, if you still work as a. Do you still work as a graphic designer?
No, I'm now a photojournalist.
Okay, all right. But I guess graphic designers here are maybe dealing with the same kind of
I think so.
problem. And also, there's another thing is like the role of technology. Nowadays, one of the things is like you buy a computer. And some people think it's some sort of a magic tool, and they open up the computer and all of a sudden they're photographers, they're musicians, they're graphic designers, they can do everything. So that's another thing. Many more people than 10 or 15 or 20 years ago are doing what I was doing for them.
You need to have the skills.
But they're doing it themselves with, I have to say, I don't want to sound arrogant, but with very poor results. And but what can you do? I mean, I don't think there's nothing we can really do.
If in average all the designs are bad, then one of them will stand out.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I've been. I know that I have developed a personal and easily recognizable style in a certain way, so that I know that people who really want to work with me will still do it, but at the same time, it's true. I can't close my eyes, and I have to recognize that the volume of work I get as graphic designer has been slowly every year, like decreasing a little bit. So
okay, maybe we rest a bit and we continue in another segment.
Okay. All right.